Hello, 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 hello. I'm Scott Lee. I'm alcoholic. Hi, you
Hey,
guys.
Scott.
Hi. Let's take a moment and invite God to join us again. That's been working pretty good, I think. Amen. Thank you. I'll start very briefly before I hand it over to Matt. We're from Nashville, Music City. Have y'all ever heard the Alcoholic Opera? I'm going to sing it for you. Me, 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 me. I thought you should know that. Matt, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Well, we've gone through two inventories. First, the resentment and the fear. The last inventory in step 4 is the sexual harms, sexual misconduct, and one that I really appreciated the way that is laid out. First of all, it starts off by basically saying that we all have sex problems. We wouldn't be human if we did, and we're not going to be the judge of those ideals, whatever they may be, whatever we may have as individuals. Everybody has an opinion, and I had an upbringing just like everyone else had an upbringing, and we had things that were instilled in us that I learned from things on television, and I just come into this world as a sponge, and by the time I get to Alcoholics Anonymous, I just stop and I look back and I see that, I haven't always been the best partner. I haven't always gone into relationships with a pure heart or selfless. And I love the fact that it says that we do not want to be the arbiters of anyone's sex conduct. Arbiters, I believe, means judge, for an easy translation. I'm not going to go. So this is one of the things. I go, a lot of the guys that I work with, and myself too, I'm sure on first approach, we're kind of tense or clammed up on this thing. It's again, we're still doing inventory. Remember, this is just a fact-finding, fact-facing mission. That we're going to try, with God's help, to remove our emotions from this, and let's just stick with the black ink. Page 69, first full paragraph. We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Our own conduct, our sexual harms. Where were we? Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? First column, whom had we hurt? The second column, what happened? Or did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? That's what happened. And where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? Third column, we got this all down on paper and we looked at it. And I follow the same methodology as the resentment inventory and do these one column at a time. We list these out. We put this down on paper, and then and it talks about, in the next paragraph, something that was just revolutionary for me, and it talks about shaping a sane and sound ideal for my future sex life. Okay, again, we're just taking a snapshot of this. Matt, maybe this isn't who you are, but now with this new God consciousness, what does your future sex life, what do your future sexual relations look like? We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? That's actually what we're looking at our old relationships. But then we asked God to mold our ideals and to help us to live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor despised and loathed. And the exercise here that I've been given and have much success with is to spend at least an hour in meditation with God, as I understand God, to meditate on what my ideals would be for my future sex life, and not, a brunette with fair skin and shapes and stuff, but just not the things that I see that I used to associate with sexual relations, but to look deeper into the relationship itself. So those ideals turned out to be, my ideal relationship would be something to the effect of a monogamous relationship built on trust and laughter and transparency and with God at the center, instead of blonde hair, blue eyes, this type of a thing. And I spend time. This isn't something that just came to me. I spend time, and I put this down on paper. It's not a novel. I think just a few, maybe a paragraph, no more. And then it goes on to say, whatever ideals turn out to be, we must be willing to grow towards it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, providing that we will not bring about still more harm in so doing. Obviously, it might not be a good idea to go back to the woman who was married and go and talk to her in front of her husband and children. I can't hurt someone else to save my own face. That's not the way this works. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter, and the right answers will come if we want. What an incredible promise that is. And I've found that not only within these relationships, but in other problems as well. Ask God what we should do about it. We were just talking about a situation last week, and God's always on time, but very rarely early in answering these questions. And I'm grateful for good sponsorship and for some guys, that help me keep, accountability and just keeping this stuff on the table, because as with other areas, like, this is one of those things that I'd like to keep kind of segregated or like compartmentalized. And some of these things, past and present, like, I need to bring them to the light. I need to share them with another human being. It's, my sponsor. But sexual relations, sexual misconduct can be a slippery slope. I've seen, even in sobriety. So it's important. And I've done probably every possible thing wrong in sobriety, except for drink. I'll just say that. But the one thing I've done right consistently is I've talked to my sponsor about it. Even after the fact, even after maybe advice not to go down that path. But I told him anyways. And that's been my saving grace, is being open and honest with another human being. And also too, like, I'd say that we get the suggestion in step 3 to pray with our partners, or to invite them to prayer in morning. And I heard Keith L. say a while ago, who's another one. If you haven't heard his talk, get one. Keith Lewis. He said that prayer was one of the most intimate things he did with his wife. And there were other intimate things too, but that prayer was one of them. And I found that to be very true as well. That when I get to invite another human into the spiritual, which is all spiritual, but intentionally invite them into a practice that I've come accustomed to and enjoyed through the process of working the steps, it has just elevated that relationship to a new level.
Before you turn the page,
yes,
let me
please.
say a couple of things. I talked to Don Pritz, and boy, if you don't know that name, please do yourself a massive favor. Among other things, he took A to Russia. He's a phenomenal guy. He was one of my teachers. And I said, what about this arbiter of anyone's sex conduct? And he said, if I see anybody I know doing anything I think is going to take them toward a drink instead of away, I have to say so. And I think that's an important piece. I don't want to stand over his casket wishing I had said something. And when I get a new guy to sponsor in this category, what I say, if he's married, it's pretty obvious, but we cover it. If he's single, what I say to him is, I'm going to ask you to leave the ladies alone until I can get you through these 12 steps. Couple of reasons. One is, as sick as you are, your chances of attracting a healthy female are not good. I mean, what do you bring to the party? Stalking skills? I mean, what is she getting? And now you may have one fooled currently, but she's going to wake up. And as I said in my home group about two newcomers, two dinglings don't make a bell. And just because the rocks in your head are a perfect match for the holes in hers does not necessarily mean it was made in heaven. So I'm going to recommend you leave the ladies alone until I can get you through this step work. A girlfriend takes a lot of time and energy, and I want your time and energy to do this to get you healthy. From a position of being healthy, you'll have the chance to attract a healthy female. And that will be much easier to deal with. Now, you can ignore my advice in this category, and I will not drop you from sponsorship if you do. But don't bring me the problem you create for yourself in this arena. I've already told you what I think you should do. I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to listen to it. I've already told you. Pretty important. I think there are a lot of really good ways to do what's in this book. That we're just laying out what we do. Don Pritz, I just mentioned, did this portion in sentence form. He showed me one of his 4 steps. And he did this portion of inventory in sentence form. Great. I think there are a lot of really great ways to do it. As far as a sexual ideal, I asked the guy I sponsor when we get to this point to pray about it. And Matt's right. It does not have to do with how tall she is, what color of her hair, or the size of her underwear. It's not in the category. This is about your behavior given your situation today. We tend to overdose. Like if you're single, we don't need to know what it would be if you were married but temporarily separated, but not legally separated, but you thought she had a boyfriend, but you're not sure. We don't need that one today, Stanley. Quit solving problems you don't have. Given your situation today, what do you think God would have you do/not do in this category? And I'm not making this up. One of the guys I sponsor called me several years ago. He had a newcomer, and his first crack at the sexual ideal was he was going to continue to sleep with the 2 married women in his neighborhood and hope his wife didn't find out. Okay. I'm not making that up. That's where we started. It's not where we ended up, but that's where we started. And I think my second guy that I sponsored that lived had about 30 years, and he was dying of cancer. And I got to spend some time with him, and he said, I've taken the greatest sponsor phone call of all time. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, talk to me. So the sponsor, he says, I'm frightened. He said, well, what are you afraid of? He said, I'm afraid my fiance's husband is stalking me. I'm not making that up either. So there's typically some work to be done in this category. One of the things that troubles me, and when people talk about this being a sex inventory, it is not. It is a sexual misconduct inventory. I don't like the idea of sex having a bad name. It was invented by God. All right? So it's okay to talk to him about it. He created it. Good job. Yeah. And I don't want it to have a bad name. So we're just going to inventory the dark side here. And that's what we're doing. That's what this whole thing is about. Yeah, go for it.
We ask God to mold our ideals and help us to live up to them. I'm going to need some help too. But it says, judge is the final judge. Suppose we fall short of this chosen ideal and stumble. Does that mean we're going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but that's only a half-truth. It depends, well, there's that M word that Scott loves. Depends on us and our motives. Mm-hmm. If we are sorry for what we have done and have an honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and we will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are sure to drink. We're not theorizing. These are facts out of our existence.
A quick one. My sponsor told me years ago, he said, if you look up under enough skirts, you'll find a slip.
Yeah. It is, yes. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. Very, very common, a very important thing and a common theme throughout this entire book. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache. And there is truly nothing that ensures immunity from a drink, from a troubled situation, than work with another alcoholic. I think it's one of the greatest gifts that we've been given, is to be able to connect with others, like that I don't have that connection with other people, but I can pick up the phone and call one of you, and immediately I'm not thinking about me, and then a miracle can happen. And sometimes just not doing anything is enough for the miracle to happen. I don't know, I mean, picking up the phone and taking that action, obviously, but like I don't have to, a lot of these situations, especially with relationships, I think I have to do something. Yeah. I think an answer is needed, when really, all I need to do is listen. Or all I need to do is be still in the present moment. Put my thoughts on somebody else. Let God take care of that stuff. I've stopped telling the new guys that they shouldn't, get into relationships or go down this path. The one I have, it didn't quite beat your story, but one of the first guys I started sponsoring, who I told, hey, call me before you get into any, make any big decisions. 30 days at the halfway house. I go to an assembly, come back Sunday. We talked on Friday, keep in mind. Everything was good. He's at the halfway house Sunday. I call him on my way home, and I'm like, what's going on? Well, I moved out of the halfway house. Okay, that's kind of a big event, but I didn't, and I'm engaged. So I was like, you didn't even have a girlfriend on Friday. Tell me. And so we laughed, but he's still, by the grace of God, he's still sober today. So this tells me here, if we fall short of his ideals, we didn't even get to his ideals yet, but I don't think that was one of them. But there's a lot of grace extended to all of us. And I've experienced that firsthand where I stumbled. Like Scott says, just another opportunity to learn a lesson. The key is to learn the lesson, because continuing to make the same mistakes will cause great pain and great heartache, and ultimately, like it says, it could cause a slip. The thing for me is, like, when I'm new, I don't have much to offer, but I'm barely alive myself. I'm desperately in need of tapping into a power greater than myself, and if she has a name, and she's a human, and she's a human power, then I'm on a slippery slope right away. And that's what I do with my relationships. If I'm not grounded and I don't place my recovery first, I make you my God. And that's what I've done in sobriety, and it's a painful lesson to learn, because he can't be God. No human power is going to relieve me of this, but naturally I like things I can see, touch, feel, and taste, instead of a spirit that's bigger and more powerful. That's just my default. So it's really important, I think, to for me in my experience, to let the process, the transformation of these steps happen, get through the work before going in, so I have something to offer. Because most people have had heartbreak through relationships. It's not fun. I mean, if you're going to do it, it's at least, I felt better doing it sober and knowing that I've had some grace and dignity with the outcomes. Although I've definitely made some mistakes along the way.
I want to touch on something else too that just came back to me. I had an experience. I flew a foreign jet for the Air Force for a number of years. And on one particular trip, I was going like 12 days. and I'm letting down into home station one sunny afternoon about 3 o'clock. And I got a pretty young wife at home, and I got a really good idea what I'd like to be doing about a minute and a half after I get in the door. I have a plan. And I get home just in time to see my 1-year-old son get up from his nap. And what I want to do is gonna have to wait. And with a big smile, I loved him then, I love him now. And I'm down on the floor with my son, wrestling around in horsey riding, the things you would do with a 1-year-old boy. And about 20 minutes later, it occurred to me I'm not horny anymore, and I did not have sex with my son. What happened was I got my touch need met. The skin is the largest organ in the body, and we're herd animals. We need to bump up against each other. We need touch. And what happened is from the inside, the need to be touched and the need to have sex look and feel the same. I can't tell them apart. I think it's really important to get our touch needs met. My best friend lives a couple of blocks from me. He broke up with his girlfriend a couple of months ago. And I said, "Are you getting your touch need met?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Get over here. You watch us together. Watch me hug him. It ain't 3 pats on the back. And I'm not working his side of the street. That's not what's going on here. We have a need to be touched." And I tell my new guy that I'm gonna hug you. And that's very different from 3 pats on the back, and I'm gonna hold you till you quit thrashing the first time. And you're gonna, and you're gonna get used to it, or I ain't gonna work with you, because that's what we're doing here. I wanna touch on something else too. I love the way Matt laid out the written portion of this part. The last column was, what was my mistake? What did I do wrong? And I'm gonna share mine with you because somebody in this room might die if I don't. I only had 3 entries. They appeared in a number of places. They were, I should have told her the truth, I should have left her alone, or I should have told him no. I'm a heterosexual male, there's no question about it. I had my last homosexual experience when I was 19 years old, started when I was about 12. I never liked it. And the best analysis I can do, I'd been so beaten down by my father that I could not tell anybody no for any reason. Do you notice my demeanor did not change when I just told you that? Talk about emotionally disconnect. That's what happened to me through this process. Critically important. If that's the one you got, any of you guys, if that's the one that's killing you, it's the reason you're in treatment for the 12th time because you couldn't tell anybody, catch me at the break and we'll talk. I got free. I got absolutely free. This is what new freedom looks like. I can talk about that and nothing comes up inside. How free do you want to be? How free do you want to be? And when I did my first fifth step, I told things that I was sure would never see the light of day again, and now I tell them into microphones all the time. And I'm not saying you're going to have to do that. You probably aren't. It's what I do. I have a definition of mistake. A mistake is an invitation to a lesson. The evidence is if I'd already learned the lesson, I would not have made the mistake. And I don't have the power to make a mistake so ugly that this loving, laughing God cannot turn it into something wonderful. Not fix. That's who I am, that's who he is. It is really that simple. I believe planet Earth is a school. I'm pretty sure I flunked out of someplace else or I was tossed out as a behavior problem. If you hear the history, it makes perfect sense if you look at the whole story. And the first lesson was, how's it working, Scott? Full throttle after your own will. How's it working? Are you willing to try something else? That's where the beginning was. So it's okay with me that I make mistakes. It's funny, I didn't know I was going to get this in, but I am. I was sitting by a stream, and I looked across the stream, and there was a thundercloud. And I'm looking at that cloud. I thought every drop of rain in that thundercloud's falling on God's will perfectly. I know they are. So's the tree over there, and so's the bird in the tree, and so the minnows in the stream. Why can't I? Man, it was on me hard. Why can't I? And I got the answer, and the answer is I am. I do not believe God put me here to be perfect. If you think you're supposed to be perfect, I wish you a lot of luck. You're going to need it. It's going to be a tough trip. But if it's not my job to be perfect, what's my job? My job's to make mistakes. They sent the right guy. Yeah. And all my life, they said we learn from our mistakes. Not true. Not true. If that's true, nobody in this room has been arrested more than once. Right. Yeah, good luck on that. No, guys like me do not learn from our mistakes. I'm like the dog that went on the rug. What did he learn? Nothing. When did he start learning? When you rubbed his nose in it. Me and the dog have that in common. I do not learn from my mistakes. I learn from living with the results of my mistakes. Yeah. Hold that thought, read the 12 steps. Half of them are about me embracing the results of my mistakes. 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, and 11 are all about me embracing the results of my mistakes. So here's the learning process as I understand it today. 1, make a mistake. 2, be notified. I don't always know I made a mistake. Sometimes you got to tell me. 3, own the mistake. And that means if they only know 80%, I got to tell them the other 20. Yeah, that was me. 4, consult a spiritual advisor about how to. 5, make the amend. Usually, not always, there's an amend to be made. 6, embrace the lesson. The lesson comes at the making of the amend, not at the making of the mistake. That's where the lesson comes. 7, share the lesson. That's what really sets it. 8, when I share the lesson, I have to tell you I made the mistake. If I just share the lesson I'm preaching, nobody wants to hear it. When I stand as a sinner beside a sinner, he can hear me. I got to tell you I made the mistake. 9, make the next mistake. It's not okay that I make mistakes. It's why I'm here. It's God's will for me to screw up so that I can go through that process. And I simply don't have the power to make a mistake, so okay, he can't turn it into the beautiful. We just watched him use one of the 2 worst things in my inventory to probably touch some lives in here. Pretty powerful guy. Pretty powerful guy. So that's what mistakes are for. They're just invitations to lessons. So I have my own permission to make mistakes. But that's only half of the freedom. You have my permission to make mistakes. That includes all my family members, all the guys I sponsor, some major political people in this country and in others, 2 former wives. Those of you who got your driver's licenses out of Cheerios boxes. Everybody. You have my permission to make mistakes. Because if I'm going to be upset by your behavior, I'm a prisoner of your behavior. And I don't want to be a prisoner anymore. And you have my permission to screw up. And that includes things that you do that appear to hurt me. The fact is you can't hurt me. I'm sitting in God's lap. I'm immune. You cannot hurt me. It can't be done. I had a funny experience some months ago. My credit card company mailed me a new credit card. It never got here. And a few days later, a $4,000 cash advance was taken in New York City off of that card. And the credit card company said that was on me. I'm not a wealthy man. First thing I did was pray about it. And I reminded God of something he knows. God's got plenty of money.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And that changed this anger into sadness. Anger and love never travel together. Never. Sadness and love do. And any time I'm angry, I judge. Judgment is the grandfather of anger. All right? The only, I don't know if I can get to the beginning of this or not. I have to judge to be right. I've never been angry when I'm also absolutely certain I was right. And so being right is anger's father. Judgment is the grandfather. I have to judge to be right, to be angry. That's why working on anger doesn't work. Anger isn't the problem, it's a symptom. The problem is judgment. So I added that to my morning prayer. I worked that out by myself in 2015, January of 2015. One morning, I just saw it. I added it to my morning prayer. It was there this morning. Bless me, please. I do not judge any situations, as good or bad. I'm not qualified. I'm just not qualified. For all I know, that war going on over there, and I am the grand sponsor of people on both sides of that. For all I know, that war has turned more people to God than all the churches in the universe. I don't know. I don't get to judge any situations. Bless me, please. I don't judge any people as good or bad. I don't judge their motives. I see them as you see them and love them as you love them. Even, especially the ones I find unlovable. I have times when I'm unlovable. I don't need you to judge me. Then I'm probably covering that myself. That's when I need you to love me the most. Must be when you're unlovable, you must need me to love you the most. And serving a God of love is not a part-time job. It just ain't. It's either yes or no. So when I find myself angry, I stop. It says pause when agitated. I stop. God is waiting very patiently for me in the pause. That's where God is in the pause. Pause when agitated. I've judged again. I must have because I'm angry. Please take away this judgment and anger and substitute sadness. because sadness and love travel very well together. Anger and love never do. Bless me that I may respond in sadness with love. If I respond in anger, we get this, and I wind up making amends. When I can respond in sadness and love, they can hear me, and I don't wind up making amends. I had no idea we were going to get into all of that.
I'm glad we did.
Sometimes when I get going, I just get going. This thing that he just covered so beautifully about it doesn't seem to matter what's wrong. It doesn't seem to matter what's going on in my life. The answer is for me to try to help you. I've read this book quite a few times. I can chase a concept through it. This, let's have a good time in recovery. I give you 5 pages for that. I give you 4 pages that say, I'm the problem. The single theme that runs wider and deeper in this book than any other is help others, be of service. I read the book one time from Roman numeral 11 through Dr. Bob's story, looking for places where it said to be of service or help others. I counted 52 places. I found others since then. I didn't get them all in my first pass. I don't know how many there are. It is the number one theme. No matter what's going on with me, the answer for me is to help you. It makes no sense at all. Page 8. I'm just going to roll, Matt.
Go for it.
2/3 of the way down the page. I was soon to be catapulted on what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. Einstein has said the fourth dimension was time. The dimensions are width, depth, height, and time. And the time I catapulted into is right here, right now, place the alcoholic rarely visits. But Bill described this fourth dimension in his own terms in the next sentence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that's incredibly more wonderful as time passes. Happiness, I get that. Aristotle said what everybody wants is to be happy, and I want that for myself, absolutely. Peace, yes, I want that for me too. I want to be calm and gentle and peaceful in here, and I want that for me. What is usefulness doing on that list? That's for them. No, it isn't. There's no direct route into happiness and peace. They are side effects of being useful to you. There's no direct route into happiness and peace. It's a side effect of being of service. Being useful is for me. Page 84. I'm just going to do the whole thing here. 3 lines down. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. Uselessness and self-pity, what are they doing together? The answer is the path out of self-pity is through being useful. That's how you get out of self-pity, is be useful. I was diagnosed with cancer in my throat in 20. They took my teeth, as I'm sure you've noticed, because they killed my jawbone with radiation. You can't have live teeth in a dead jawbone. There's a danger in that. And I got into depression a couple of times. Chemo and radiation is pretty rough. I mean, who knew? And as I was in process there on 2 different occasions, I got into depression a couple of times. Fear, anxiety, worry, and depression are all different levels of the same mistake, which is trading a perfectly good right now for a bad deal at some time in the future. That's what all of those are. But I got into depression, which is thinking about me and a bad future. And I followed the prescription. I picked up the phone and called you. And I said, what's going on in your life? How can I be of service? How can I lift your spirit? And when I did that, it lifted mine. I tell the men I sponsor, your first thought's wrong as usual. You're thinking Scott's got this cancer thing threatening his life. He doesn't need my small problems. And you're exactly wrong. Perfectly, 100% dead solid wrong, as usual. I need to get out of me. There's no direct route out of me. But if I can get into you as a side effect, I'm out of me. Bring me your hangnails. I need them badly. That's how I got through that. People ask me, how in the world did you get through that with such a good attitude? And the answer is, 1, I begged the men I sponsor for their small problems. I called you and asked, how could I be of service? And I worked real hard on staying in today. I did not allow myself to say, oh, this has been going on for so long. That's borrowing pain from the past. Oh, I don't know how much longer I can do this. Borrowing pain from the future. I stayed right here, right now. And nothing went on in any given day that I couldn't handle that day. And that was the magic for me. Back on page 70, I'm going to go ahead and close this piece out.
Yeah, bring it.
This next paragraph is what we pilots call a checklist. If you've done something else somebody told you was a 4th step, See if you can say, yes, I did all of these things. So we've been thorough about our personal inventory. We've written down a lot. If you've written down everything we talked about, you will have written down a pretty good bit. Listed and analyzed our resentments. We did that. I remember we did that list. We did quite a bit of analysis. Begun to comprehend their futility and a fatality. Yeah, we killed you 7 times on 1 page. We commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. Yeah, we did that. Going to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies, to look on them as sick people. Yeah, we covered that. Listed the people we've hurt by our own conduct and are willing to stray down the path if we can. We missed that at the bottom of page 67. Last paragraph begins with notice. Count up a couple of lines above that. And this is reference to the 4th column. We admitted our wrongs honestly. We're willing to set these matters straight. It sounds like step 8. You got to remember the steps are a package. Don't need to think of them separately. And then we covered it again at the bottom of page 69. Must be willing to make amends where we've done harm. It's not time to make them, but we must be willing to. So we covered that. So if you've done what somebody else told you was a 4th step and you can't say, yes, I did this, you might try the actual, real live, sure enough 4th step out of this book. It's where the magic is. It's where the absolute magic is for me. We got time to go ahead and do 5, and I think I'm going to, you want to do something off of these first couple of pages?
You're going downhill, man. I'm going to let you keep rolling.
You want me to roll?
Yeah.
Okay. Page 72, 3/4 of the way down. Many of us thought it was necessary to go much further. Be more reconciled discussing ourselves with another person when you see good reasons why we should. Best reason first. And we skip this vital. The word vital comes from the Latin. The word vita means life. So vital is either necessary to life or life-giving. This vital step may not overcome drinking. The next page, more than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. Boy, this is my story. Wow. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. I've been an actor all my life, pretending to be the guy I think you want me to be. And you used to find us who's in front of me right now, I'm a different guy to everybody. I've got hundreds of personalities I haven't even used yet. I can appear to fit in anywhere. I've been doing it all my life, based on the single core belief I had when I came to you, and that's that I'm not good enough. I realized that when I was about 8 years old. I ain't good enough. Nothing I ever do can ever measure up. Being Scott can't work. So I'm gonna be something else. I'm gonna be the second coming of John Wayne, except for the fighting. I can't risk this, I'm too pretty. But except for that, I'm gonna be the second coming of John Wayne. So this is the persona I take on. Big boys don't cry. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Never let them see you weakness. Never ask a stupid question. Get what you want. It'll make you happy. Never surrender. Never give up, no matter what. Never apologize. Sign of weakness. How'd I do? That hit you? That's the act most of us are doing, some or all of when we get here, based on this belief that we're not good enough. And if I'm awake, I'm on red alert trying to hold up the right mask to keep you from seeing the real me. Yeah. All my life. Takes a phenomenal amount of energy to do that. I don't know how much longer I could have done it. That's what alcohol took away from me, is it allowed me to to think I laid down the mask and come out and play. And I wake up the next morning and the mask is back. And by the time I get to you, I've been holding up the mask so long, I don't know who stands behind the last one. I knew very little about the real me when I got sober. Very little. It's been a process of finding out. It's okay not to know, as long as I'm trying to find out. Continuing on 73. The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he's revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. Oh, yeah. Rolling over and opening one eye and saying, "Who are you?" Yeah. Yeah. Or the worst thing is when she says, "Give me a drink of that. You don't look too good yourself." These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes the memories in front outside himself, hopes they'll never see the light of day. He's under constant fear and tension. Makes for more drinking. Boy, there's my story. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. They've spent thousands of dollars for examinations, No, but few instances we've given these doctors a fair break. We've told them the truth. Boy, there we are. A friend of mine says he used to pay a psychiatrist $100 an hour to lie to him. A friend of mine says he thinks alcoholics should go to veterinarians instead of medical doctors. The veterinarian is used to the patient not telling him what's wrong. You know? Here we are. Okay. So it says I got to be honest with somebody if I'm going to live. So they threaten my life again. I think we all know there are no rules in AA. The first one is mentioned here on page 74. Last paragraph begins with the word notwithstanding. Count up 3 lines. The rule is, must be hard on ourselves, always considerate of others. This is with references to who's going to hear your 5th step. But it applies everywhere. I got to be rough on me and considerate of you. Rigorous honesty means I got to be rigorous honesty about me to me. To you, it's compassion and honesty. While we're on rules, the second one is mentioned on 101. 2/3 of the way down. So our rule is not to avoid places where there's drinking if we have legitimate reason to be there. It goes on to say that I need to be in fit physical condition. And as far as we're into the book, the assumption is that you've already done the first 11 steps to get to here. Kind of important. The other rule we don't have is on page 118. Paragraph begins in the middle of the page with "we women." Count up 3 lines above that. Live and let live is the rule. My sponsor, Rusty, his name was actually John, but at the end of his drinking, he was mixing Kool-Aid with mouthwash, and he wet his pants so many times his zipper rusted shut. And we nicknamed him Rusty in honor of the zipper, and he loved his nickname. Rusty turned around and he said, "Let live and live." That one plays both ways. He also said, in the history of planet Earth, no human has ever been put in an insane asylum for being insane. Never, not once. They put us in there for acting insane. And nobody's ever been let out for being sane. They let us out for acting sane. So on those days when you're crazy, if you don't act on it, they won't know. Don't tell them they're not ready. Pick up the phone. Tell one of us we're ready. And we're not all crazy on the same day. That's some of the best advice I ever got.
Take that to the bank.
Don't tell them. They won't know. Page 75. You know, there are a number of different perspectives on step 5. There's a school in AA that says step 5 is read me your 4th step. I am not of that school. If we've done step 4 the way we just laid it out, we've listened and analyzed the resentments and prayed them, and they're gone. I can't imagine why reading about all of that would have any benefit. We've analyzed the fears and prayed about them, and we've commenced to outgrow them. I can't imagine why talking about that's going to be any good. We have a new sexual ideal, and we're growing toward it. I don't know what that's about. So what is step 5? To me, it's a confession, and it's covered succinctly in a single sentence on page 75. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. When I get a guy to sponsor, number 1, I don't let him schedule his 5th step till he's finished 4. I'm not going to let him bash himself into finishing the 4th step because he's got 5 scheduled. Bad mindset. He's ready. We schedule a time and place. We lock the doors. We got a bathroom, we got tissue, we got water. The first thing I ask him is, are you nervous? If it's his first 5th step and he says, I'm not nervous, I say, we're wasting our time because you've already decided what you ain't going to tell me. I want him nervous on the first one. After that, probably not. But the first one, I want him nervous. And I say, all right, let's invite God to this. And I want you to ask God to give you a clear mind to find what he would have you find and the courage to say it. And I will ask God to make me perfect. Page 13. About 8 lines from the bottom. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request for my usual to others, that only might expect to receive, but that would be in great measure. I use that prayer a lot when I'm talking to the guys I sponsor. I ask God to make me perfect. Not for me, for them. So I'll do that here. And when we come out of the prayer, I say to him, tell me now the single worst thing you ever did. I want the worst one now. And they usually back up. And then they tell me, and then I tell them when I did that. Chances are exceptionally good, runs way in the high 90s. Now tell me the second worst thing you ever did. I tell him when I did that. And we're going to do that till he can't think of any. If he happens to hit one I didn't do, I'll tell him I've heard it before because I have. Because I have. Typically, the big one is either homosexual experience. That's almost always it, for heterosexual male. I've sponsored a number of gay guys. Today, I currently sponsor one that's got 19 years. He's one of the best AA members I've ever known. And the thing that twisted him up was trying to have heterosexual experiences. It weirded him out. I understand. So I'm not judging anybody here. I hope you can hear that. But typically, it is either a homosexual experience or an abortion. Those, and I've got that one too. Those are my two big ones. Notice again, my demeanor did not change. I've been through the forgiveness process in step 9. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, where I got free on that. I made amends to the unborn child and I got free. And we'll be talking about that this afternoon. But that's usually, one of those is the first, almost always. And I keep saying, oh, what's the next worst thing you did? What's the next worst? I do it till he can't think of any. And then we consult his 4th step. 4th column, resentment inventory, quick look at the fears, sexual misconduct. I've been doing the 5th step like this for about 30 years. I've only had one that lasted over 2 hours. It was 2 hours and 20 minutes, and the guy just had a lot to say. The shortest one I heard was 20 minutes, and it was complete. It was absolutely complete. These 5th steps that run on for days, you've got the wrong person in charge. It will take him, if I say, okay, talk to me, it'll take him forever telling me about stealing the candy bar out of a convenience store, getting to the abortion or the homosexual experience. It can take days. If we knock those out first, we're done in less than 2 hours. Less than 2 hours. And when he believes when I think he's finished and he thinks he's finished, I ask a series of questions. And I'm not sure if I remember them. I ask about a homosexual experience. I ask about abortion. I ask if he had sex with a family member or an animal. If he's physically harmed anyone. And I'm not talking about a bloody nose on the schoolyard. I mean physically done any harm. I ask if there was anything he decided not to tell me or wasn't sure that I haven't already heard. I'm just picking the scabs. Just picking the scabs. And then I read him the 5th step promises, which I think we got time to do it. I think it's so beautiful. Once we've taken this step withholding nothing, we're delighted. Look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. Begin to feel the nearest to our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, and now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we're on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. What a set of promises. I got that on my first 5th step because I told that guy all of it. I told him the whole thing, and I got free. I got absolutely free. I could not believe it, how good it felt. And so that's the first half of the 5th step. And then it says returning home. And if he hasn't got a place he can go and sit quietly for an hour undisturbed, he can stay wherever we are. It's normally a bedroom in my house. He can stay there. And I'm not going to read all this, but it says, were you thorough? And I tell him, roughly half the time I'll get a phone call within 24 hours of something you just missed. It will not mean you've done a poor job. It happens about half the time. Don't worry about it. Call me when you can talk. We'll clean it up on the phone. It's not a big deal. Turning the page, strangely enough, says if we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. So apparently steps 5 and 6 are taken the same day. Emphasize willingness as being indispensable. We're now ready to let God remove from us all the things we admit are objectionable. Can you take them all, every one? If we cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. There's a 6-step prayer if you need it. And it says, when ready, my goodness, we'll take 6 and 7 and 5 all on the same day. My Creator, I'm now willing you should have all of me, good and bad. Pray you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands away my usefulness to you and my fellows. Not asking God to take them all. Read the short form of the step. It looks like I'm asking him to take them all. Just to stand away on my usefulness. There's that usefulness thing again. I've got 3 particular character defects I call my spiritual barometers. They are lying, improving the truth, actually. Lying, swearing, and being angry with you in traffic. And if I notice one of those is out, if I look, they travel together. And I can't change me. This is a gift from my 4th sponsor. He said the book doesn't say anything at all about me working on my character defects. That implies that they're manageable, that my life's manageable, and they're not. That the answer to my character defects is not for me to work on them. The answer is for me to get closer to God. Because my character defects are darkness. This is about light. This is me. So if I find myself angry with you in traffic, or if I swear, or any of that, what I do is I inventory my spiritual program over the last few days. Where's the hole? What's morning prayer and meditation look like? How long has it been since I talked to my sponsor? Did I tell them the whole truth? What's my sponsorship look like? Am I letting people in traffic? Am I saying please and thank you? Am I taking meetings in the jails and treatment? Am I doing the things I've been told? Where's the hole? Usually for me it's meditation. Meditation works so well that I stopped doing it. I knew you'd get that. I just knew you would. Yeah. And so I plugged that hole. And 2 days later, you could cut me off in traffic and almost hit me. And I will smile at you, and I will wave all of the fingers. And I'll say, wow, God, thank you that I smelled he might cut me off and had a foot on the brake. And I avoided an accident that would have been his fault, but I would have been in a wreck. Thank you. And go with that child today. It looks like he could use some help. I make mistakes like that myself. And I cannot change myself from the raging maniac a couple days ago that wanted to follow you 2 exits past yours, signaling to you that you're number 1 with me. I can't change me. I don't have the power. So I don't focus on the darkness. I invite the light in, and the light comes, and the darkness flees, because the darkness cannot exist in the light. I did my first 6th and 7th step. I was still unsponsored. I'd done my 5th step with a counselor at the treatment center. And I had a big white light experience when I was in treatment, like I've never heard of a bigger one. And it didn't make me perfect, I'll tell you that. And I was laying in bed a week or so after this 5th step, and it was like I was immersed in his love, like it surrounded me and I floated in it, and I was in the presence of this magnificent love. I wish I had words, and I don't. And I was overwhelmed by it. And I said to him, please, give me the hardest training I can stand so you can make the most out of me that you can. And that's really step 6 and 7. I'm going to tell you the truth. I've had times I wish I hadn't prayed that. Some of the training been pretty tough. And yet, today, as I said before you, I can pray that and mean it. I want what he wants, even the parts that I don't like, because those are all invitations to growth. They all are. And today, I want him to make the most out of me that he can. Whatever that means, whatever that requires, I'm in.
Say that again, please. Can you say that prayer you said again, please?
The prayer is, God, please give me the hardest training I can stand and make the most out of me that you can. And that's really what that says. So
Be careful with that prayer, though.
yeah, you might want to do one more notch on the chin strap if you're going to do that. And so it says, defects of character, send away my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength so I go out here to do your bidding. Amen. We've then completed step 7. 5, 6, and 7 are taken the same day. They're taken the same day. Bill Wilson, page 45, Bill Wilson was asked on a number of occasions the difference between character defects and shortcomings. And he said, I just didn't want to use the same words over again. Here we have him on page 45 using the same single word 6 times in 9 lines, starting about 6 lines down. The needed power wasn't there. Human resources marshaled by the will were not sufficient to fail. Literally, lack of power was our dilemma. Had to find a power of which we could live. It had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. Where and how we're going to find that power. It's exactly what the book's about. Main object, maybe you find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. My problem was not lack of information. It was not lack of motivation. It was not lack of education. My problem was lack of power. I simply did not have the power. And this whole thing we do is about having me access a power that can handle all of that. It's really what this thing comes down to. And in step 6 and 7, I do not focus on the darkness. I invite the light in. And the light comes, and the darkness flees, because it cannot exist in the light. Matt?
Thanks, Scott. Yeah. Just in closing, I think going back to step 5 is probably one of the most sacred activities that I've been able to participate in my both sharing my story with another man, but also receiving. Being on both ends of the 5th step is truly a sacred activity. One thing that you didn't mention and was part of my experience doing the 5th step with you was what happened afterwards. After I had meditated and decided that everything was firm and in place, solid foundation. I remember that I got one of those hugs that, you weren't going to get a tap, you couldn't get out of for a second, and alarming. After I had stopped fighting, I remember you saying that I forgive you, I believe that God has forgiven you, and by the time you finish your 9th step, amends, you will have forgiven yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And that's the deal here. Let's keep this train moving, and after lunch, we will continue with the rest of this transformation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for picking that piece up. Hang on just for a second. That was so powerful. I missed that piece. Thank you. I'd like to say grace, because we're about to feed here. All right? Yeah. Hi, God. Wow! What fun. Thank you for this gathering of souls. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for openness. Thank you for this wonderful food we're about to receive. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen.
Hey, Robert Alcoholic.